This is One Sentence News, a daily podcast featuring 3 news stories with a sentence-long summary and 1 sentence of context apiece. I'm Colin Wright. This is a sponsored message. I've been using Anchor as my podcast host for a while now, and it's been a pleasure to use. Anchor offers benefits that most other hosts do not. It's free to use, but it also has a collection of tools that allow you to create a podcast completely within the Anchor website or smartphone app. They distribute your show to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the other distribution channels without any additional effort on your part, and you can make money from your podcast without any minimum audience size. So you can use it as a more traditional podcast host like I do, but it's also got everything you need to start a podcast from scratch. If you're keen to give it a shot, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. It's Tuesday, September 13th, 2022. Let's talk about the news. From Axios, Ukraine furthers gains in Kharkiv region following major breakthrough. On the heels of what would seem to be a significant strategic victory against Russian forces occupying portions of eastern Ukraine over the weekend, Ukrainian forces have reportedly taken still more territory back. Russian troops have reportedly been fleeing, and some analysts are now predicting a victory for Ukraine because of these gains, how they were achieved, and the position Russian forces are now in. Worth noting here is that there's a lot we don't know, and plenty of reason for both sides to feed us false or partially true information in order to grant their side psychological benefits. So while some of these reports have been independently confirmed, it's prudent to take a lot of this with a grain of salt at the moment. That said, Ukrainian forces do seem to have achieved a significant series of victories in unexpected locations, making good use of recently acquired high-tech weaponry to do so, and they do seem to be in a much better position, consequently, to surround Russian troops further south, while also menacing those holding territory taken by Russia in 2014. So possibly quite good news for Ukraine and their supporters, but probably not enough to justify a victory declaration. From the Washington Post, largest private sector nurses' strike in U.S. history begins in Minnesota. About 15,000 nurses in Minnesota went on strike yesterday and will remain so for 3 days total in protest of low wages and unhealthy staffing plans and shift schedules. This is thought to be the largest ever strike by private sector nurses, and it's representative of what's happening in several other industries as well, as workers in high-stress fields cope with the consequences of labor shortages and paychecks that are not keeping up with inflation. There's a chance, if negotiations are not resolved in the meantime, that U.S. railway and port workers will begin their own strike this Friday. And from Reuters, Biden to hit China with broader curbs on U.S. chip and tool exports. A long-rumored expansion of curbs on which semiconductors and semiconductor manufacturing tools China is allowed to import from the United States may be announced next month, according to people familiar with the matter. This expansion would include limitations on chips optimized for use with artificial intelligence applications, in particular, and would restrict the export of machinery that allows the production of semiconductors that use sub-14 nanometer processes. And for context, the current smallest semiconductor scale in production is 3 nanometers. Like most other export regulations, companies could ask permission to ship such chips and tools to China, but would have to provide a good reason for doing so, and the race to develop better chips and software to run on them is increasingly being framed as a national security issue by the U.S. government. If you're finding some value in One Sentence News, consider leaving a quick review wherever you get your podcasts and or sharing the show with a friend. You can find out more about this show or subscribe to the email version at onesentencenews.com, and you can support this and other related projects like the Let's Know Things and Brain Lenses podcasts at understandery.com.